Here we go.
Wow, Pete. Yeah. I mean, a week ago, maybe it was even Monday, everybody was crying about, OpenAI, they're not earning enough money. the Oracle is going to trade to the downside by 7%, and we're all done on AI. Seems like we might not be all done on AI, Pete.
Well, they're making those statements all the time, John. These same guys, oftentimes on that 4-letter network behind me over there, and it's amazing because they come on and they talk about AI. Oh, it's cooked. It's done everything it could possibly do. And I'm not talking about a couple weeks ago. I'm talking about many, many months ago. and here we are, and we're going through earnings season, and I think we're finding out a little bit more detail about exactly what is going on. And it seems like it's pretty big still.
Yep, it is indeed pretty big, Pete. And I think, when you look at Google, for instance, and we're on our small cap spotlight today, we'll tell you about another stock that is moving higher and why, that it is tied to AI as well. But Pete, Google just exploded through the all-time high. Alphabet, if you want to call it Alphabet, I still call it Google, Googl. Seems more like a Google than an alphabet to me. But, let's dive into the rest of the macro today, Pete.
Yeah.
I'll say that housing starts very impressive. They're up almost 11% to an annualized rate of 1.5 million units. And that's despite the fact that interest rates are significantly higher than they were back in 2022 when people were locking in rates around 3%, Pete. They're still looking at north of 6%, and yet housing starts boom, boom, boom to the upside, right?
Yeah, and the economic data continues to be something that's surprising people, I think, to some degree. And the other thing is, as we've talked about many, many times, the earnings. And obviously, this week, today, from last night, we got plenty of that, and we got a chance to see just how strong things really are. But I got a stock for you real quick that I'll say from the macro perspective. Why is the Dow up as much as it is today? Caterpillar. And John, this is a stock that I talked about maybe a month ago or so. I think it was on News Nation, and they asked me, they say, wait a minute, what is that Caterpillar? Why are you so bullish on Caterpillar? And I said, do you know what Caterpillar does in a society that's building out data centers? Well, they're the ones who are providing things for them to build them out, and they absolutely are crushing it, John. I mean, their numbers were unbelievable. The build out for the data centers for AI is absolutely outrageous, and Caterpillar is absolutely psyched about it because they are making money hand over fist. Their earnings, they crushed it. Their revenue, they crushed it. I mean, everywhere you look, the revenue was unbelievable. So I'm going to throw Caterpillar out there as part of the big move that we're seeing out of the Dow.
Well, and I'll throw this out for that, Pete. This is another company that Illinois has lost. These guys used to be Peoria-based Caterpillar, but because of Governor Pritzker and ludicrous taxing that they have done both to the individual and corporate level. Look it up, folks. Google it. Tell me I'm being political. Say whatever you want. They moved to Texas. Why do you suppose they moved to Texas, Pete? You think it was maybe for the same reason that you say, why is Apple still in California? And
if I was on the board, John, they'd be in Dallas right now. I'd say, all right, first move. I'm going to save you guys so much money you can't even believe it. Our headquarters are now going to officially be in the state of Texas, and you'll probably like Dallas most, so we'll stick with Dallas.
Yeah. Just incredible. But you're right, Pete. The stock has almost tripled in the last year. Take a look at it a year ago when you get time, folks, even though this isn't the part of the Rebel's Edge where we talk about stocks usually. Caterpillar was $300. Today it almost touched $900. Bang.
Not so bad. Not bad.
That's just a bang. What do you got as far as volatility, Pete?
Well, John, we talked about this the other day, the fact that we thought it could slip into the 17s. Well, it did. And then it had a little bit of a spike this morning. It's moving around a little bit. That's normal. But I think what's becoming more normal, at least for now, is the fact that we are going to be closer to those mid 17s. Last I looked just moments ago was trading 1740. And I'll say this, when you take a look at what this looks like in a 52 week, it's $13 to $35. Well, we're getting a hell of a lot closer to that 13 number down there for the VIX, John, which, you know what? It gives you something to be able to gauge things off of. But you know what? Don't be afraid of the VIX at certain level. I mean, it's not for that reason. As a matter of fact, you use it in the best ways you can. And right now it is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And I like the way it is, and it makes total sense given where the S&P 500 is today.
Yep, sure does, Pete. I mean, it's an indicator of how much we expect the market to move up and down. And this one has been narrowing and narrowing and narrowing the amount of movement that they expect. So again, very positive for markets right now. Yeah. Let's dive into Polymarket today, Pete, for our prediction of the day. Remember yesterday, folks, when Pete and I were saying, on certain four-letter networks, it says traders await Fed decision. No, they do not. And no, we did not. And we told you exactly what was going to happen. Well, how about this one? The prediction market today, Pete, says 96% chance. Already a month, actually more than a month out into the future, because there is no May meeting. There's a June meeting, Pete. Yep. Are we going to see a move in June? 96% chance? No. So if you want to run a headline, I'm pointing the finger at the people that write those headlines. If you want to write a headline about how traders are awaiting the June decision, you are wrong. You're just wrong, and you're just trying to do a clickbait headline, and it ain't working, because I'm never going to open up that headline. Pete's never going to open up that headline, because we know 96% chance right now. Heck, Pete, the only thing I can give you 100% certainty of is the sun's going to come up tomorrow. And if it doesn't, well, I guess we're all gone anyway. Yeah. So, I mean...
It is crazy.
Let's dive into stocks, because boy, did we have some winners here, folks. And do I like patting myself on the back and our team on the back? Chris Sikora and Pete and all the guys that are and gals that are part of the success of Market Rebellion. Yes, I do. So take a look at this one. Google again. Call it Alphabet if you want. First quarter. They only had revenue of $94.67 billion, Pete. That's all. Just, pretty much nothing, right? And guess who had unusual activity? And I put it out yesterday again, Pete, to all of our Trade Monster AI people. And I said, okay, here's the deal. They bought 45,000 of those May 355 calls, right? That's 4.3 million shares of a $300 company. That's a lot of money, folks. We're talking not hundreds of millions and billions. We're talking massive potential control of 4.5 million shares, because 45,000 options, multiply it by 100 shares, you get the idea. Okay, so they were buying those, and I said, let's do this, because those are still $7 options. Again, when you look at the unusual activity there, they're not cheap options, even though they were above where the market was trading. So they expire not this week, not next week, but 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we said, let's buy the 355s and sell the 360s. Buying what they were buying and sell the 360s. Put $1.80 on the table, not $7. $7 is $7,000 per 10 lot, folks. We instead could put on, less than $2,000 and turn it into $5,000. Sounds like a winning trade to me, Pete. And this one explodes through the all-time high, and a lot of happy campers over at Market Rebellion because of it, folks. folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the stock has had a nice lift, obviously, post earnings. You can see it right there. I mean, outstanding. That's a hell of a move. 52-week highs, all-time highs. This thing's been just absolutely cruising, John. And it makes total sense because you look at these numbers. You talked about that revenue. That was up almost 24% of the revenue with that $94.67 billion. How about the earnings? Well, earnings were up as well and absolutely crushed it. They were expecting 264. They got, I think it was 519 or something like that. Whatever it was an absolute blowout. And a year ago, there was 281. So they blew that out as well. I mean, Google / Alphabet is on an unbelievable roll. And you know what? For all those guys that did say AI is done, well, these guys are raising a little bit more for their CapEx, John, 180 to 190 billion. So the stock is moving to the upside. People are pretty excited about what Google's doing. And you know what? They're even more so than just that. They've also got cloud. They've got this. They've got that. But they crushed it just like we're talking about before earnings season started. They're going to crush again. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And it started with the financials. It's gone through a million other stocks, it feels like. But now here we are with the big guys, and Google crushed it.
Well, since I skipped right over small cap spotlight, Pete, I might as well insert it here.
Sure, why not?
Because small cap spotlight, folks, it gives us a chance to show you guys some of the companies that we're involved in. We're compensated advisors to many of these companies. And one such company is indeed Z Squared. And some of you already know about Z Squared because we have talked about it in the past. Yesterday was a great day for Z Squared because the new co-chairman, Michelle, came into town, Pete, Michelle Burke. She came into town, and with us and about 40 people at the NASDAQ, we rang the closing bell. There she is in the middle, right? There she is hitting the bell, Pete. And there I am in the red hat over on the right. Mark Lepresti's over on the left. My daughter was actually there as well, Tristan Nigerian. But fabulous time. Z Squared. What do? Well, number one, folks, they used to be a miner of Litecoin and Dogecoin in particular, and you get paid, for doing that kind of work. But what do you need to be able to do that? You need a lot of compute. You need to lock up cheap power and all the rest. Otherwise, you can't compete. Well, as it turns out, people are really flocking to data center buildouts, just like Pete said with Caterpillar. And Michelle Burke said, Pete, 3 years for permitting, for locking up your energy, for buying all the necessary compute to run a data center. So instead, if you're somebody like Z Squared, you might say, and they did, hey, let's run it as a data center. We're in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Iowa. And we can do it without that 3-year lag. We can do it right now. And so that's what they're doing. Take a look at that stock. The symbol changed, and now it is ZSQR. And they are doing a great job. You saw us ringing the bell yesterday, closing bell at the NASDAQ. Z Squared is, I think, really one to watch. And again, we are compensated advisors, both Pete and I, to the board over at Z Squared. And they are doing great things, Pete.
They are. That's awesome. And it's great to see them ringing the bell. I know how excited people get about that. So I have to give them all their props that they were all there in New York and doing their thing and having a lot of fun. That was fantastic and fun to see everybody there. That was great. That was a big group of people.
Yeah, huge. Well, let's talk about Amazon now, Pete, because Amazon reported earnings. Did we have unusual activity? Yes, we did. Stock closed at 363, 263, I guess, yesterday, Pete. And trades all the way up to 273 today, and higher than that in the pre-market. Now, this one emphasizes why it's important to be disciplined, folks, because how far out into the future? The nice thing, Pete and I talk about it all the time, what about options is unique. Number one, with stocks, you never get a target, like, what's the upside? Number two, or downside if it's puts. Number two, time frame. What is the time frame? Were they buying January options? Were they buying options that expire tomorrow or whatever? You don't get that with stock. You can trade stock all you want, folks. And those of you who don't understand options, well, you should stick to stocks. But if you want to learn about options over at Market Rebellion, you should, because this one popped to 273. And guess what, Pete? If they didn't take their profits, it's negative now on the day.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be prepared if you're making trades in the markets. You've got to be prepared to know exactly how things are going to move and what you have to have a game plan. And that game plan takes a heck of a lot of discipline. It's not always easy, but you've got to have that game plan, or you're not going to be very happy when it's all said and done. So I'll tell you who is happy. All the folks working over there at Amazon, John. I mean, they absolutely crushed it. They hit a 52-week high as well. 273 was the highest that I saw. And you look at some of the numbers that they put up. North America revenue was up 12%. International revenue was up 19%. Total revenue was up 16%. 16% total revenue means $181 billion, John. So that comes through pretty good. And, one of the biggest parts of Amazon, a lot of people just don't really fully recognize it, is the cloud, right? Well, AWS had growth of 28%. So I would say that this was one heck of a quarter again. There is one concern out there, and maybe that's why there's a little bit of pressure on the stock. It's down about 2.25% presently, but they're using a lot of that free cash flow that they've got, John, for some investment. And they were talking into AI, and 95% of that free cash flow has been going into it. Now, I think some people view that as negative. I suppose you could, but I would say this: they are absolutely humming along, and I think they're doing things, unbelievably well. So when you've got that kind of revenue, I think these guys pretty much knocked it out of the park.
No doubt. I mean, this was a fabulous report. And you know who else had a pretty damn good report, Pete? Meta.
Yep.
META. Meta, the former Facebook, of course. A lot of us still call it Facebook, just like I still call Google instead of Alphabet. But their CapEx spending, Pete, over at Facebook/Meta is going to be extraordinary. And it's going to be, what is extraordinary? 125 billion to 145 billion. Imagine that, folks. I mean, just a few years ago, there weren't companies that were that big. Now that's how much these guys are going to be spending in 2026 on CapEx. So that was up from the previous range of 115 to 135 billion, again, with a B. So despite the fact, Pete, that they had exceeded analyst expectations, it's that spend that has people going, boy, Mark's really opening up the wallet here.
They've been critical about him for a long, long time, John. And you know what? It's understandable that you could be critical, but I look back and I say, well, he was right here when he was one of the guys who was saying, you know what, this is a big deal. This AI is a big deal, and we're going to spend a hell of a lot of money, but it's going to come back to us. Well, I think that's been where he's been, and that's been the path. And you look at the additional cost of some of the data centers. Of course, it's all going to go up. I mean, that's part of life or whatever, but Zuck is still spending. And one of the issues that he's having to run into right now is memory, because the pricing just continues to be something that gets a little bit higher and a little bit higher and a little bit higher. You can see the nice move that it has made. It's given back about half of that. Initially, it had a nice little pop, but this one also started to pull back relatively fast, John, based upon what we're seeing from the expected CapEx. And I think people I don't know that they fully understand where this is going, where this started, and how much that I think Zuck has been in front of this whole thing. So we'll see how it goes and how things shake out. Yeah, today it's down, 10%, something like that. I think over time, this has a really good opportunity to start scratching up there near 700 again. But I'm going to wait for the options to tell me that.
Always a good idea. Let's take one look, Pete, at Apple ahead of earnings, because it's a Mag 7 stock, of course, AAPL, and they're set to report after the bell tonight. Now, They don't have some of the tailwinds that you might expect, Pete, from a new device being out there that caused a lot of people to flood into the stores, retail stores, as well as the online stores that Apple runs. And they take 35% still, I think, Pete, from those. As this is just, such a monster Apple is, that you can't dismiss or say that, hey, I don't think they're, it's one of my largest holdings. I think it is one of Pete's largest holdings too. And Pete has held it a hell of a lot longer than I have. So what do you think, Pete, when we're looking forward to tonight's earnings? What are you seeing? And would you be long it or just holding into the earnings?
I think holding makes sense. There might be a little bit of a lift, John, but one of the things that I was looking at too is the price to the earnings is extreme. And when I say that, it's not overly crazy, but the PE average over the last 5 years has been around 24. Well, it's trading at a 34. And so it's a little bit more expensive, in other words, is what we're looking at here. The other thing that stands out for me is the fact of when they decided to do it, the CEO change, and announce it at least. That was interesting because normally you'd see that happen maybe on a call like they're going to have today, but that's not the case. They wanted that out there. So that part's pretty interesting too. And by the way, again, I'm going to say the CEO, I wonder if he's even going to think about going to Texas. I mean, there's or somewhere else, John, but somewhere with the zero state tax, I think that would be an interesting move, and we'll have to see what they decide to do. As far as this, why Apple's doing so well, when you look at the strong GDP growth, it kind of tells you that this is probably a good time for somebody like Apple. It's trading around 270, 52-week highs is 288, so it's not far away from those highs. I don't know the direction right now because we haven't seen a whole lot of options come in there. We have seen a little bit of bullish options come over the last, week or two, but it hasn't been dramatic. It hasn't been huge, so that would be something I'd be waiting for. One of the things that stands out for me that Apple has done over the years, and I like it, is products and new products and the growth of the latest, greatest, which is wearable medical devices. That could be something that people get pretty excited about. I don't know enough about it just yet. I hope to find out a lot more, but it's going to be pretty interesting. I'll tell you. And I look at Apple and it's traded, reasonably well. So it'll be interesting. It's not like overbought and all the rest of it like some stocks can tend to do. But after looking at where we were just talking about with many of the Mag 7, and now all of a sudden you take a look over at Apple and you see where they are, I think it makes some sense that they maybe could have a pretty positive quarter on their hands. We'll see. It'll be pretty interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yep, indeed, Pete. And we did have the unusual activity that we had, folks, was 75,000 of the July 295 calls. So again, they give you a target. It's trading in the 270s right now. They're buying calls that are $25 higher than that. So that's one thing. Two, it's not tomorrow. It's not based on this earnings. It's probably based on things they think are going to happen between May, June, and then July. So be aware of that. But they paid $4 for a call, Pete, that's $20+ out of the money. And they bought 75,000 of them.
It's a big order.
So, yeah, that's a pretty big order. 7.5 million shares of a $270 stock. All right, let's do some sports, Pete.
All right, we're going to jump. Do we have video? Oh, we do have. This is video. John comes up with
the guy Pete wants to draft.
This is the gosh, I want nothing to do with that. The amazing thing is these guys are literally just bouncing off of this. I mean, I give the guy all the credit in the world, John, that he's able to move that big of a body around, and he's not stumbling, he's not bumbling, he's actually running pretty well for a guy who looks to be about 400 pounds. I don't know what his size is, but he's a monster.
He is a monster. Look at him. Like three guys hit him right there. And then here's a fourth, fifth, sixth.
They're just bouncing off him like ping pong balls.
Nice. Oh, my God.
If you're a dad or a mom on the team in the white jerseys, do you tell your kid, hey, don't even try?
Don't even do it.
Don't get in the way of that guy.
Yep, that's what I tell them.
That is a classic. You always give us some good stuff. All right, I got a one for you for the NBA, John. That's a little bit of a shocker. And last night they did win. I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons, but they are really struggling. I mean, this is a team that was 60-22, John. So they were the number one team in the East, right, for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons. They're number 3 overall. So in the Western Division, you've got 2 that are in front of them, OKC and San Antonio. But it's interesting to see that these guys were scraping and scrapping and trying to get themselves back into a position to get somewhere with this, John. They were down 3-1. They won last night. That's a good thing. But we're talking about Orlando, who's the other side of this right now. And it's interesting to see how this is sort of playing out because Orlando's a number 8 seed. So it makes you kind of wonder what's going on with Detroit. They're not able to do some of the things that they were doing, obviously, during the season because they had a heck of a record. But they're struggling with some of the shooting. Some of the players are definitely struggling with shooting. And I'm almost wondering, even if they get through this one and they take this thing and they get their 4th victory along the way, can they get by somebody like Boston, who, by the way, they were the number 2 seed, Eastern Conference. And they've got the return of a guy who was not supposed to come back at all this year for the most part, Jason Tatum, but he's back and he looks pretty damn good and people are pretty excited. As a matter of fact, John, since he came back and started playing the latter part of the season, they've won 14 of 17 games. So I would say that he is sort of the guy who kind of makes the Boston Celtics move in the direction that they are. And he's done a great job coming off of this injury and everything else and being healthy. But it just makes you wonder in the NBA. I mean, you've got OKC. They're pretty freaking unbelievable, I would say. And then you've got some of these others. OKC, I think, is just the best. And I think that they're going to do back-to-back. But what do you think? Does Detroit rather have a problem here? And are they going to struggle enough that they can't get it to the next level going against number 8? What do you think?
I think it is going to be a challenging setup for that, yeah. Pete. I mean, your Minnesota Timberwolves or Timber Puppies, I forget which way you say it, are leading 3-2 over Denver.
Yeah.
So that's pretty damned impressive. Yeah. But as far as Detroit, man, you watch that team more than I do, so I can't really say. But I will say that Boston is always tough. Yeah. Ever since they've really secured some great players over the past 5 years, they've been really hard to beat, especially at home. So I guess I would stick with that side of the bet, Pete, rather than the upstart.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that's going to play itself out. By the way, here in Minnesota, John, we got the Wild playing tonight in the playoffs against Dallas, and we've got the Timberwolves playing against Denver. So it's kind of a big sports city today, I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah,
in the playoffs. And if both of them win, things are going to be pretty good in the downtown area of Minneapolis, I would say. They're pretty excited. Next up, John, how about a real quickie? Arizona Cardinals, NFL. I just thought we would just touch on this just because I find it pretty interesting. Carson Beck is a kid that, if people haven't followed him, he's played 6 years of college football, just so everybody knows. He's played 43 games in his 6 years, John. He's also played 5 college playoff games, both at Georgia and at Miami now. And 6'4", 220-pound kid. He was the 65th pick in the draft and went to Arizona. They've got 2 kind of journeyman older guys that are quarterbacking presently because their quarterback that was a little bit younger and a damn good runner and started playing better than he had in his career is now with the Minnesota Vikings. But I'll tell you what, Jacoby Brissett, he's pretty good, not great. I think Gardner Minshew, pretty good, not great. And it kind of makes you wonder, it's not a bad pick to get Carson Beck, but he's got a lot of baggage he comes with, because a lot of these people have talked about he's kind of a loner. He's not necessarily like very oftentimes part of the team. He had a pretty well-known breakup with his girlfriend after he signed the big contract to go to Miami for NIL, which was like $4 million. It's an interesting one. He's got a good arm. I think he's, physically he's built to be an NFL quarterback. He's got all the measurements you'd want. He's got good accuracy, but I find it interesting, and I think it might end up being a pretty damn good draft pick, I think, for Arizona. What do you think?
I think they took a shot on a guy that, like you said, I'm not saying he's poison in the locker room. I think, we have seen players like that, Pete, that the other players just don't like at all. Obviously, in Denver, when, the guy came down from Seattle and signed a monster contract with the Broncos, he was not popular in that locker room at all.
Right.
Will this guy be like that? I don't think so. But like you say, if his agent could just get the kid to say, okay, do what you do on the field, but, kind of become friendly with some of the guys that you're going to be playing with, and some of them that are going to protect you and so forth, like the offensive linemen.
Yeah.
There is nothing like the camaraderie that Brady had with his team, with this guy. He needs to get that, Pete. If he changed and got that, I'd say, yeah, this kid could have I think a very good career. I don't think he's the same prospect, but I think he's very good. And who knows? I mean, even though, like you say, he played for 6 years and he's not a young guy, not coming out at 21 or 22 like some of these guys do.
Yeah.
He's, at the age that a lot of these guys are signing their second contract.
Yeah.
And we all know the first contract's for 4 years, and then you sign the big contract. But he'll get paid, and hopefully he'll be a team player rather than what he had been up until now.
And I'll say this, you're right about Tom Brady, but there are other quarterbacks out there that are very, very smart. Brock Purdy, I put really high on that list, because since he became the starter, John, each year he buys the entire offensive line, first string, second string, doesn't matter, the entire offensive line, something. This past year, it was a vehicle. They got like pickup trucks or whatever it was. It doesn't really matter, but that's how you kind of get together with your guys. Your guys really like you, and they think, you know what? He's not a quarterback with an ego. He's a guy that really appreciates what we do for him, which is exactly, I think, what Brock Purdy's doing with those guys. He appreciates them protecting him, giving him the opportunity to get the ball to McCaffrey and all the rest of these guys that they've got in San Francisco. That's what a leading quarterback does. They don't have to be the guy in the locker room screaming and yelling and all the rest of it. But if your players like you or love you because of all of the wonderful gifts that you give them, they're going to play that much harder. And I think that's the one thing Carson Beck could do, over time. It's not like he was a first pick in the draft or anything like that. But I think over time, especially if he can get a contract that's real, and what I mean by that is a sizable contract, he could definitely get himself in a position with those players that they're going to start liking him that much more, because that's part of football, man. They look up to the quarterback because the quarterback is the leader on the offense, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So he's just got to do a better job with that. I think you're right. I think the agent has to step up and do a much better job for him.
Well, if he does, then I think it'll be a great acquisition in the end of the second, beginning of the third round. Even though he slipped to that, I think it'll be a great opportunity for him and for the Cardinals. All right. Well, Pete, we got to go. I hope all of you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, share it with some friends and so forth. He is, of course, you put the @ sign in front of Pete's name over there, folks. He didn't do that today. So put @ Pete Najarian to get to his Twitter, or in mine, @ John Najarian, Jon. My dad was John. And we'll be back Monday, Pete. Do you know what time?
1 p.m. Eastern. I'll tell you what, be there. Be there. It's going to be a big weekend.
Yep. See you guys then. Have a great one.